PAWNSTARS, the Gilded Slice. The camera's screen opens to a centered view of Princess Celestia standing on a busy sidewalk. She was wearing a tropical shirt with the buttons off and a trilby hat adorned with sunglasses.
"What am I doing in Las Pegasus?"
she said with a nervous smile.
"Well, very important princess business, of course. The details are regarded as a high priority and should be kept secrets. They're not supposed to leave the blackjack table. I think that's enough classified information being disclosed, so back to the topic at Hoof. I came here to check out these guys."
She pointed a hoof towards the pawn shop across the street. Beside it stood a large sign that said Bronze and Copper Pawn Shop, open 24 hours. Crowds of ponies were already lined up at the entrance, chatting with each other while they waited for the staff inside to let them in. The camera returned its focus back on Celestia, who was now donning an enthusiastic look.
"I heard that they have interesting trinkets stored in that little shop of theirs. I intend to do some sightseeing and maybe a little punning while I'm at it. But first..."
Celestia's horn suddenly glowed with magic, and it quickly engulfed her entire body. A blinding flash followed after. Once the brightness faded away, the camera was looking at a different mare. She was wearing the same clothes that Celestia wore. Her fur was still white, but for some reason brighter, and her mane took a blonde color. Her height remained the same, but her wings were non-existent.
"A disguise."
Celestia continued what she said when her transformation had finished forming.
"So that I'll get the genuine pawn shop experience."
She gestured for the camera to follow her.
"Let's go."
The scene then cut to an interior view of the Bronze and Copper Pawn Shop. The place was jam-packed with ponies perusing the items on display, while others were talking to the staff in regards to their purchases. Celestia, who was still in her disguise, approached a stallion who was standing behind a glass counter filled with all kinds of rare trinkets. He was bald, but he still managed to grow a beard, which was already graying. "Hi, I'm Brick." The stallion greeted the princess in disguise. "How can I help you?"
"You have quite the collection here."
Celestia complimented.
"I've seen a lot of things here that I thought to have been forgotten by time already."
"I recommend visiting a museum then. It'll totally blow your mind," Brick quipped. Celestia giggled at his response.
"I think I'll just stick with this place for the time being."
"Please do. We're also like a museum, but with a reasonable price tag." He then let out a laugh, clearly amused with his own joke.
"That's good to hear."
Celestia smiled.
"Because I have something with me that I wish to sell. I think you'll find it interesting."
Brick gently tapped on the glass counter surface with a foreleg. "Let's see it." With her magic, Celestia summoned the item in question and placed it on the counter. It appeared to be a detailed sculpture of a slice of cake, all made in gold. Brick raised both brows upon seeing the sculpture. "Whoa!" He looked back at Celestia. "Is that what I think it is?"
"Yes."
Celestia replied proudly. The scene then cut to a centered view of Brick. "This is crazy," he began. A large smile was carved on his face. "I never expected something like this would be brought into my shop." The scene then switched to a view of the sculpture. It slowly revolved around the slice as if to showcase it in its entirety. While the camera continued to revolve around the item, Brick's voiceover could be heard in the background. "This little piece of work right here is called the Gilded Slice. It's a sculpture of a cake slice carved in gold by the great artist August Rayden. Yes, that Rayden, the guy who made the Ponderer. A tradition was formed within the Rayden clan that they were supposed to gift Princess Celestia a golden slice every time her birthday reached the 50th mark. And since hundreds of years had already passed, she probably now has a multi-layered cake with all those slices she retrieved." The scene cut to a centered view of Celestia.
"It's not really a multi-layered cake, but more of a large golden pizza."
She then spread her forelegs as wide as she could to emphasize the pie's size. The screen returns to the interior shot of the pawn shop. "How much do you want for it?" Brick said. Celestia tapped a hoof on her chin.
"I was thinking maybe 3,000 bits?"
"Oh, boy." Brick frowned at Celestia's asking price. "That's a bit too steep for my blood, and we don't even know what generation of Rayden made this piece.
Generation of Rayden?
Celestia asked as she tilted her head. So, we all know the original Rayden was not immortal, right? So, sooner or later, he'll have his heirs continue the tradition for him. So now his children, and so on and so forth are now tasked to make the sculptures. And its value drops the later the generation makes it. An impressed look formed on Celestia's face.
I didn't know that.
Brick looked back at the sculpture and hummed in contemplation. Do you mind if I have some pony check this out?
Not at all.
I'll be right back. I got a pony who knows everything. Brick then gestured to a unicorn staff member who was working behind a glass counter across the room. The staff understood the signal and immediately magicked a dragonfire letter and launched it out a window nearby. The scene then cut to a centered view of Twilight Sparkle.
Hi, I'm Twilight Sparkle.
She said shyly to the camera.
As a former student of Princess Celestia, I know everything there is to know about her.
Her eyes went wide after she realized what she just said.
Oh, did that come off as creepy?
The scene returns to the shop's interior with Twilight approaching Brick and Celestia, who was still in her disguise. Hey, Twi.
Hey, Brick.
Both ponies proceeded to shake hooves.
Wait, you know Twilight Sparkle?
Celestia said to Brick, surprise apparent in her voice. Yeah. Brick shrugged. She's my go-to mirror when it comes to ancient magical artifacts, or, in our case, Celestia memorabilia.
So, what do you have for me?
Twilight asked. Check this out, Brick said as he slid the golden sculpture towards Twilight.
No way!
Twilight's eyes went wide upon seeing the item she was tasked to appraise.
Is that an 11th generation written rendition of the Gilded Slice?
Brick raised a brow. 11th, huh?
Yes.
Twilight confirmed.
Long written, you can easily tell that this is his work by the type of cake alone. A black forest gâteau, as it was his favorite. I think this is the only variation of the Gilded Slice that has a cherry topping on it, but more importantly...
Twilight cast a suspicious look at the disguised Celestia.
How did you get a hold of this?
Was all Celestia could say before Twilight continued.
The Gilded Slices are safely stored inside the royal treasure room. The only instance of them being let out and shown to the public is when the princess hits the 50th mark on her birthdays. Unless, of course...
Twilight narrowed her eyes as she continued to glare at the princess in disguise.
It was stolen. Can I speak with you in private?
Celestia smiled nervously as she slowly dragged the skeptic Twilight towards the exit. The scene was quickly cut to a centered view of Twilight. A foreleg covered her face, which she slowly dragged downwards in shame.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed,
she said in a whispered tone.
I should have known that was the princess in disguise, the hidden forward dead giveaway.
The scene returns to the shop's interior. What was all that about? Brick asked the mares as they trotted back to his counter.
Nothing.
Twilight was quick to reply.
Let's get back to business.
Cool, Brick said. What do you think it's worth?
Since it's an 11th generation written,
Twilight said as she softly scratched the back of her head.
Its price should be within 5,000 bits. No wait, 10,000! Make that 100,000! A million!
Her voice was raised a couple of decibels with each declared price. Celestia tapped the mare's shoulder before the numbers could reach ridiculous heights.
Sorry.
Twilight said, as she gave Celestia an apologetic look.
It's just worth 5,000 bits.
Oh, thank you for your help, Twi, Brick said, as he raised a hoof in Twilight's direction.
Don't mention it.
Twilight reciprocated Brick's gesture and both ponies shook hooves once more. With her job in the shop over, Twilight then headed towards the exit, but not before she gave Celestia a rather conspicuous wink. Celestia smiled awkwardly in response and was secretly hoping that Brick didn't see that.
The price has gone up, I see,
she said, going back to the topic at hoof. Yep, Brick replied. So, how much do you want for it? Is it still the same, or...?
Nope.
Celestia shook her head.
Still the same.
Brick hissed softly with his teeth. How about 1,500? A small frown formed on Celestia's face.
That's a sharp fall from what I was asking.
Well, I gotta make money here, Brick countered. Also, this is not Rayden's most famous work, and it's not even made by the original Rayden.
I don't know.
Celestia pondered for a bit before she replied.
How about 2,500?
Best I can do is 1,800. That's my final offer. I won't go any lower than that. If I do, I won't make any profit out of this. Celestia let out a defeated sigh.
You're one tough cookie, aren't you? Alright, it's a deal.
Okay. Brick grinned. I'll meet you right over there. He then pointed at a counter where a staff member was receiving bits from the other customers. The scene then cut to a view of the pawn shop outside. Celestia was standing in the same spot earlier before she entered the shop. She was also back in her alicorn form and had a stupid grin on her face.
It feels like I've just been scammed. I love it.
Dude, the whole way through I was thinking about that Meat Canyon video with PAWNSTARS. You know, Jesus, he's the son of God. Dude, it was funny as shit. And this is funny as hell too. Now let's get on to our stars of donators.
Top donators: Cat-gjf, Zar630, J10Man, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and IronSky. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin, Rolan, Stewhex, Sword Brother, Mordred, Omicron, Lyrae, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Ridesoul, Badass Waffle, Shadow Moon, Luigi88, Chancellor Crust, Big Smoke 369, and many more fantastic people. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.